Dear ladies and gentlemen, пані та панове, this is the 8th episode in the series of conversations and interviews with intellectuals in Ukraine. For those out there who are keen to learn more, think deeper, and hear from the original sources. В етері 8-й випуск із серії розмов та інтерв'ю з інтелектуалами в Україні для тих, хто хоче дізнатися глибше, дізнатися більше, думати глибше та чути з перших джерел. This is a project of PEN Ukraine, who are in Ukraine right now, fighting for their freedom and indeed their very lives under the continuing Russian invasion. We express our support and admiration for their dedication and commitment, as well as for the indefatigable spirit of all Ukrainians who are fighting today. Це проєкт PEN Україна, які зараз перебувають в Україні, борються за свою свободу, а власне і за своє життя в умовах триваючого вторгнення Російської Федерації. Ми висловлюємо нашу підтримку і захоплення їх самовідданістю та наполегливістю, а також невтомним духом усіх українців, які сьогодні воюють. The project is co-hosted by PEN International, which has continued to provide a platform for freedom of expression for those currently under the highest risk. We don't always agree with each word said, but this is how freedom of expression works. Our partners for today are PEN America, the Ukrainian Institute London, Ukraine World, the Harvard University Ukrainian Research Institute, and the Harriman Institute at Columbia University. We are streaming today's event to all partners' Facebook pages. Співорганізатором проєкту є Міжнародний ПЕН, який продовжує надавати платформу для свободи вираження поглядів для тих, хто перебуває в групі найвищого ризику. Ми не завжди погоджуємося із кожним сказаним словом, але саме так і працює свобода висловлення поглядів. Сьогодні нашими партнерами є PEN Америка, Український інститут Лондона, Ukraine World, Український світ, Український науково-дослідний інститут Гарвардського університету та інститут Гаррімана при Колумбійському університеті. Ми транслюємо сьогоднішню подію на всі партнерські сторінки у Facebook. Захід відбувається англійською мовою. And I will switch to English. Our speakers today are those who can put the light on one of the trickiest contexts of the ongoing situation. Historical, cultural, and maybe a bit of cultural code discovery and translation background. Anna Vovchenko, literary translator from English and Spanish languages into Ukrainian, co-founder and program director of Europe Island Festival, worked as an editor on TV, and in 2012 actually became a literary translator when a Ukrainian edition of Lucy Maud Montgomery, Anne of Green Gables was published. In 2014, Anna became a prize winner of the Metaphora Translative Contest for the translation on Federico Garcia Lorca's essays. And she's holding the conversation today with Slavenka Drakulić, Croatia, former Yugoslavia-born journalist and a writer whose books have been translated into many languages. Her best-known book is How We Survived Communism and Even Laughed, and here we have something to discuss in common. Her last collection of essays, Café Europe Revisited, How to Survive Post-Communism, was published by Penguin Random House in January 2021. In the US, she has published 8 nonfiction books and 5 novels well known. And in 2010, Slavenka's books and novel about the Balkans made it into a feature film as If I'm Not There by Joanita Wilson. Thank you, Slavenka. Thank you, Anna, for joining. Slavenka joining us today from Zagreb and Anna exclusively joining us from Kyiv. So please, if you will hear some sounds or we'll have something with a connection, bear with us. Slavenka, Anna, stage is yours.
First, thanks very much for inviting me. I have to say that when I was invited for this conversation, I was on one hand, of course, very excited, and on the other hand, very humbled by this situation. I'm humbled by the fight of Ukrainian people for their freedom and independence, and I'm also humbled in front of talking to somebody, to Anna, who is actually in Kiev. Being in Kiev today, it's nothing that one should envy. But on the other hand, I can say that I can imagine a little bit or identify a bit with her situation. We had the war from 1991 to 1993 in Croatia. We had several wars in Yugoslavia. The world call it Balkan Wars between 1991 and 1995. And I wrote 3 books about that. Unfortunately, as I always say, unfortunately, I had to have this experience. But I think the stage should be Anna's, because she is in Kiev. She's the one who is witnessing. And that's nowadays most important, because we are surrounded with informations. We are flooded with too many informations. And it's not very easy always to know what is truth and what is propaganda, because what is the most lively during the war, before the war also, is exactly propaganda. So I think, Anna, you should tell us a little bit about how, you know, I am always interested in, not in political analysis, not in geopolitics, not in big news, but in how people live everyday lives during the war. I'm interested in perspective, what I call frog perspective, from below, from every day. What do you do? Where do you sleep? How do you come by food? Do you wake up in the morning and have a warm shower and then a coffee? Or maybe this is not something that you can do nowadays. Can you go shopping at the market, or you're hiding in your cellar? These kind of things, I think, plus what is actually happening in and around Kiev, I think this is the most important to hear from somebody who is witnessing it at this very moment. And thank you very much for being able to, for wanting and being able to share this information with us.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are from Ukraine, as we now say when greeting each other. Доброго вечора, госпожо Slavenko.
Dobro večer in Croatian too, it's the same.
Well, as for my everyday life, I have always been a freelance worker, so I did not lose my everyday temperature, if I may say so. I wake up every morning in my house, in my own bed. I do not want to be afraid in advance, and I do not want to invite the war into my everyday life, though it is already here, but I'm trying to connect with everyday life as much as possible. I don't want to leave my native city. I think that it needs me, and I need it even more. We still can go shopping. The markets are not closed, but there are limitations of supplies that we can buy, and we try to do our everyday work as much as volunteer for war. I am doing I'm volunteering as a translator. I am helping a bit with humanitarian aid as much as possible. I'm well, besides, my aunt lives in a besieged village near Chernihiv, in the northern part of Ukraine. So I have some reasons to worry. But though everyday life is trying to be normal, it still resembles anticipation of a surgery, if I may say so. When you live in a capital city, which is actually the main goal for invaders, and you know that they will try as much as they can, they will keep trying to capture it. It's very exhausting feeling, and you still know that the big battle is already to happen. As for life in Ukraine in general, it's also a very strange mix of pride and fear for our people who surround you, for everyone beloved and dear, and it's hard to think of the new visibility of my country, and it's hard to think of the price that we pay for this visibility.
Can I ask you, where do you get your news from? What do you listen to, or do you have some? Do you have a trustworthy source of news? Do you have a? Is it radio? Is it internet? Is it how do you inform yourself?
We inform ourselves as well as we did before the war. So we have the free press, and we have each one of us has their own trustworthy channels of information. We have public broadcaster, radio and TV, which is
it's reaching you.
Yes, and it gives us the utmost objective information. So we don't have problems with what to listen, but I think that the choice of the sources of information, the choice of what to believe and whom to listen is much more pragmatic than it can seem, and I think this choice is has been already made by everyone, not even before the war, but since the establishing of independence in Ukraine, as well as it now goes worldwide. Everyone who is now facing the choice of information and of the ideas and of statements, I think they all made it long ago, and now people just trying to keep themselves convenient with what they hear and what they see, and this convenience is very distinguished or something.
Can you tell me or describe or remember when was it that, you know, because the my first feeling when the war started, my first idea and feeling was disbelief. when did you actually realize, not because from the news that the wars have started, invasion has started, but you personally, when you started to really feel it? Because people, what should I say, they do not want to believe that something is happening. So what is the moment in your life and you realize, oh my God, that's it, this is what is happening now to me?
First of all, the war is lasting for 8 years already, but now it just...
Okay, the invasion, let's say the invasion.
But the full-scale invasion
The
is...
full-scale invasion, that's very
yes,
more precise. Absolutely right.
We... it was felt in the air that something is gonna happen.
Yeah, this is what I'm interested in, this feeling in the air. So describe it to us.
Okay, all these 8 years, I lived with the feeling that it's not that it's not gonna end on that. It's gonna move farther and farther, and I knew that the full-scale invasion is gonna happen, but the last month or two before we heard the first explosions in our cities were very, very sharp and very, very, I don't know, that feeling when you try to breathe in and the air itself is sharp. And this was the feeling, this was the anticipation of the invasion. And now this is what I called, what I have previously called the anticipation of a surgery.
So it's a kind of physical feeling what you are describing.
Yes, for me, it was a rather physical feeling. When I woke up on 24th of February from the first explosions, together with all Ukrainian people in all the cities and even in villages, I thought, wow, okay, it's already here, and I went back to sleep.
You went back to sleep.
Yes.
Okay.
It was the moment of the big truth, which is now gonna be seen worldwide, and no one will be able to turn their eyes from it.
Yeah, that's an important thing, because I'm sure you are following the reactions of the world, of Europe, of United States, of the entire world to the invasion, to the full-scale invasion, as you say. And were you surprised by it, or were you? What is your reaction to the reactions? Which is, I mean, it's the reaction, I have to say, is overwhelming. And I have a specific reason to ask you that question, because when the war started in former Yugoslavia, the reaction was just the opposite, not overwhelming.
Okay, you want to know my reaction on the world's reaction?
Yes, exactly. What is the feeling when you have to have the entire world, I mean, on your side? I mean, at least this is there is no consolation in this situation, but it is something if the entire world is actually saying, look at the Ukrainians who are bravely fighting off one of the world powers, one of the atomic power, and look at them who, it's taking side situation.
I will start with the feeling of time in general. In these days, time is felt like something extraordinary. It passes very slowly, but at the same time, it passes very quickly. We feel that every hour changes everything, and every minute changes something. So the reactions are always changing, and our response to these reactions are always changing as well.
You are adapting to every new moment because you have to adapt to every new moment.
Yes, and yesterday when I was preparing for our conversation, I thought about what I feel of this new visibility of my country in the eyes of the whole world. And I think if it's still acceptable to give so many medical metaphors, though I'm not a doctor myself, I think that Ukraine is now seen as an assault survivor who is at the same time a volunteer and patient for the trial of a new vaccine against the new deadly disease. And on the one hand, we are considered a rather brave nation who has so much courage to oppose to this second biggest army of the world, and on the other hand, I feel that there is already fear that becomes more and more visible in the eyes of the world. Fear against us, fear and lack of understanding. Why are we still fighting? Actually,
well, that's a rather pessimistic view, I would say. But I will compare. It's no comparison between the situation what happened in former Yugoslavia. But when I was preparing for our conversation yesterday, I thought of my friends in Sarajevo who were under the siege, in your situation, under the siege, but with little food, where they were running for water to get it from cisterna, and they were killed by snipers and so on. So more than 3 years. And this is what gives me fear. That situation lasted more than 3 years before the world paid any attention to that. Why? Because this was the country, in this case Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was attacked by a small, not threatening power, which was Serbia, as was Croatia also. And it was happening in Europe, it was happening in the backyard of Europe, but nobody really considered it really a war. And even if there were more than 100,000 dead by that time, so nobody considered it a war. The world didn't know what to think about that. The powers like Germany, France, and Italy, Great Britain, America, they were divided among themselves what to do, how to solve that problem. So in other words, it has to drag on because it was totally unimportant. I can tell you from my experience also that it's not nice feeling, and it's not good feeling when your country is in the center of the world attention. It is, a rarely good thing. So I can understand your position, and I can also understand that you fear that there is a fear because by now everything should be over, everything should be finished. How long is it going to last, and so on. On the other hand, it's very good because what happened here is a consolidation, of European Union around this Ukrainian fight. and consolidation to help Ukraine and to antagonize the not to let Putin to go too far. Let's say he already went too far, of course, in your opinion, and certainly in my opinion. But it's I don't know what's your feeling. Are you when you decide not to leave Kiev? Where you psychologically you think you are, or you think people are psychologically prepared to stand, how long to stand this kind of siege? I'm telling you that Sarajevo was without heating, without water, without food, attacked all the time, and people endured that and endured it for 3 years. Certainly, I don't want anybody in this world to endure it, but I don't think it will be possible because there is much more attention in your case. So, I mean, it's good. But
Well,
what do you think, you yourself, how, when you think about that, what are you thinking? Are you thinking this is going to be over soon? Are you thinking, what if this goes on and goes on and goes on? I mean, what can you
well,
describe that?
when I was preparing actually for the war, I was ready.
Sorry to stop you. What was the verse what was your worst case scenario?
My worst scenario. Can I just hide it back? Don't want to put out the most the scariest versions of the future. We are all sure of our victory, but we are not sure of the price it takes. But I would like to calm you a little bit about the siege and about the comparison with Sarajevo. I think that that situation is quite impossible here because Kiev is a large city of 4 million of population, and its landscape is completely different from
As I said, there is no
Sarajevo.
comparison, but only in psychological.
But I was ready and I was prepared to endure as much as it takes, because I have no right to step back. It's my country. It's my history. It's our history that we are fighting for. We have been talking to our with my friends for years about our what does this war mean for us, and we consider it the continuation of Ukrainian war for independence of 1917 till 1921. That war was lost due to many reasons, and unfortunately Soviet Union established here for 70 years, but now we have no choice but avenge those who sacrificed their lives for the idea of Ukraine to be alive and continued by our generation.
You put it in very heroic words. You put it and in very heroic feelings. It's a little bit romantic, I think. But the truth is that, of course, there is now the moment of so to say, of Ukrainian identity now, coming together. Finally, being Ukrainian means exactly what you said, being defending and standing. But then, if this is so, what then you think about people who have left Kiev or who have left country? How do you see those people then?
I don't think that people who have left Kiev or the cities from the eastern part of the country who are now suffering something much more horrible, or even the suburbs of Kiev. I don't think that these people have now the crisis of identity or something. Of course, for sure, they are Ukrainians. They keep their lives for the sake of Ukraine. They are trying to survive for Ukraine to survive. And this is not a question of a choice between identities. It's
no. It's only the question: do you feel that they are betraying the city, betraying the battle?
No, we're not judging each other. Whatever choice is made is the right choice. Every person who is making their choice to stay or to leave have their own circumstances and their own amount of resource. I mean, inner resources. So whatever choice they make to survive is the right choice, and no thoughts of betrayal.
Nobody lives without a good reason. It's not easy to become a refugee, even if everybody is waiting for you to help you. It's also an incredible welcoming to these people from Ukraine who are leaving. Waiting on the borders, coming across to Poland, to Romania, to Hungary, wherever. I mean, there is a. I mean, not ever any. Maybe Bosnian refugees were so warmly received as Ukrainians are. But the other side of that, I don't know if you agree with me, is also ethnic cleansing. It's actually, I mean, the country is bleeding. The country is bleeding. In terms of real blood, but it's also bleeding if 3 million people or more leave the country. It's not little, it's not a joke. There is a historical, what should I say, lecture that refugees very, very rarely come back. And then it's also, from that point of view, a rather painful process.
I'm not responsible for all refugees, but as
nobody says you are. No.
As far as I read my friends' posts on Facebook, or as far as we talk in private, all my friends and acquaintances who are now abroad are resolute to come back as soon as war is over. You know, we had these 8 years of these 8 years of war were at the same time the 8 years of self-pride, of self-conscience, of prosperity even. We have just allowed ourselves live the life of our own in our own country, and we tried our voice, and it had been heard worldwide. We were building our state institutions, our cultural institutions for all these 8 years. And we're not about to give up. We're about to continue building the country and to continue make our lives our own, and this is what we are fighting for. So most of intellectual and cultural voices from Ukraine are really going to sound, and all the people I know look forward to the possibility to come back.
Yeah, that's very good. And there is a great mobilization, of course, also because people are speaking up in your favor. You yourself are explaining the situation. And so, but on the other hand, when you say we, do you mean your generation? Do you mean intellectuals? Because you are not President Zelensky, not yet. So you cannot, you don't, deliver this, what should I say? Addresses that he does, and he does it very well. I mean, he is amazing in this situation. That's also one of the big surprises that he can manage in this situation so very well. But when do you see your friends? Do you see them physically? Do you meet? What are you talking then about what's happening on the front line, or you are discussing books, or what do you do on the everyday basis?
I don't see them now. For now, I don't see them physically, but we are constantly on messengers together, on the phone, and we discuss everything. We always discussed everything, from books to the war, to the news, to everyday life. So this is what our life consists of, and I think that we had these 8 years to get used to the war as to the part of our everyday reality.
So you consider your dad taking part in this war in your own way?
Yes, yes.
I wonder what do you think then? How would people like me, what would be the best way to help you? What do you think we should and could do to help you, to make it easier, to send you something, to, I don't know, speak more, be more active? What do you expect? What do you think would be good for all of you in our profession? Because we cannot do things that we cannot do.
Okay. It's a hard thing to talk about, but for now, my country needs actually weapon to.
This we know. No, I'm not talking about weapons.
Yeah,
about
but
protection.
this pressure of
but I speak about you.
On me personally.
You and your friends and people who are in this walk of life that we are, writers, translators, intellectuals. What do you expect? How can we help? That's the question. And we know, everything.
May I ask you something as well? This was
please, you can ask me.
This was one of the questions I would like to put you, and I was preparing to put it.
Oh, sorry.
Ukrainian readers are familiar with your idea of not. I'm formulating wrong, but Ukrainian readers have the idea about your statement of the dialogue after the war. Actually, when you described the peaceful everyday life of the war criminals in the prison, you wrote that former Yugoslavia continued to exist between these people. And this actually mean that the war and all the struggles were in vain. So what was the world's reaction for this statement?
No, it wasn't. No. Okay, let us be more precise. The book, my book, They Would Never Hurt a Fly, which is about people who were on trial for war crimes at ICTY, International Tribunal for Former Yugoslavia. Yeah. And the last story is happening in the detention center in Scheveningen, where they are waiting for the trial and they're not yet sentenced. And all these people, including Milosevic and Croatian and Muslim, and all of them are together. They are living in the same building, and on each floor they can meet. They read the same papers. They celebrate their birthdays together, regardless of the fact that they used to be war enemies, right? So it is in their words actually that it seems that Yugoslavia still exists only in the prison, in the detention center in Scheveningen. It's very ironical statement, of course, because Yugoslavia has fallen apart. And then basically the end is that if I would have been a mother who has lost 3 sons in this war, what would I say about this picture of these people, suspected war criminals on trial, being all together, eating cakes and celebrating New Year's or something? I would think this is all for nothing. Of course, it wasn't for nothing. The war was also defensive war, because it was this Serbian army who attacked both Bosnia and Croatia and Slovenia for a very short period of time. So having a defensive war, it's another thing. You have to defend yourself. You do not have very much choice, like you now. But when you, of course, it was all put in the ironic context. So it's not what I think. It's a metaphor, and it's for this sentence actually stands for all of those who have lost lives, lost relatives, lost children, lost parents in this war. This, for them, it doesn't really make a sense. And especially because, and this I have to speak about reconciliation, because this is the problem now. Still 30 years after the war, there is no proper reconciliation. And then you think, my God, I mean, we can't even 30 years after, we still live in some kind of a latent war situation, because we did not have reconciliation.
Actually, my idea of the future help was the idea of was my proposition for the world to understand the impossibility of dialogue between the two states which are now on war. And I ask for understanding of impossibility of comparison between the measures of pain and when the world still thinks that this war will end up with continuing of a dialogue between the two states, I'm very angry about that, and
But that's understandable from your position, of course.
yeah, and this is what I would like the world to understand, and this will be the greatest cultural help that the the people of culture worldwide can give us.
To understand what? To understand that there is no communication, there shouldn't be communication, or that it's very difficult to have communication between the two warring.
Yes.
But you still want some kind of reconciliation afterwards, or?
It will be
I'm
considered
afraid that
afterwards.
But
for now, it's a very complicated and a heavy question. And I would like to ask you how it actually was happening in your country during the war. Were there some proposition of dialogue between Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia and so on? How did it look, and how did it actually feel in that moment?
Yeah, you mean during the war?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some propositions, there were some meetings, there were some conferences of Serbian writers, for example, and intellectuals coming to Zagreb. And there was this kind of discussion, because I think it's very crucial, even if there is war going on in your country, it is very crucial to understand that not all Russians think the same. They are not all the same, all Russians. Not all Serbs were the same and against Croats and against Bosniaks at that time. So we have to try not to see all people in the same way. Majority.
But actually, have you seen yesterday's photos from the concert of the celebrating concert of the 8 years of annexation of Crimea, of occupation of Crimea? The full stadium was there praising Putin and praising the war. Actually, I don't mean the actual service.
But you still have to think about these people who have strength to go out and protest and risk 15 years of prison. So to go against.
But they had 22 years to do something, but still they did nothing.
Yeah, I think that, ladies,
I understand the grudges. I understand your grudges perfectly. But we have to give them some credit to these people who are against Putin, because I'm sure there are such people in Russia. We see that there are such, and their voices are also
they are against Putin, but there is still a question whether they are against Ukraine or not.
No, you are.
I think this is a key question, basically, yes. And we also can't just merge two positions right now, because obviously in Anna's position it's going to be more black and white than from ours.
Absolutely.
In joining the conversation from London or Zagreb. Thank you both for such a great conversation and discussion, real discussion. Thank you, Anna, for your courage, for your dad, for your precious testimony from Kyiv, and for important reminder about the price Ukraine actually paying for its visibility. Thank you, Slavenka, for your deep understanding, immortal optimism. Now I know how you leave the communism and even laughed, and sharing your experience of how not to call spade the spade. I mean, war the war. And thank you both for this revision of identity issue. This is exactly the point this all started from, and future-looking perspective, what's after. It's gonna be a long discussion. All our guests start from saying that there are no words at the first, but there is always mixed perception of pride and fear I share with you being Ukrainian as well. Enormous gratitude to PEN Ukraine, which continues to stand in the front lines in the name of freedom of the truth. The fight for the human dignity you already won, for sure. We are grateful to our partners for today's event, PEN America, the Ukrainian Institute, the Ukrainian Institute London, Ukraine World, the Harvard University Ukrainian Research Institute, and the Harriman Institute at Columbia University, and for the cross-streaming service on all the partners page. And I want to remind you that what we as intellectuals can take from today's conversation is deeper understanding and some answers about what can I do to help Ukraine. The same way how Slavenka said, on our level, just working in our professional community, helping on a horizontal level, donating, fighting your governments to help, or just sharing the word. PEN International is proud to be a platform that supports freedom of expression. I remind that we don't always agree with each word said, and it's open discussion, but this is how freedom of expression works and how it should be. And this is one of the biggest fights which is happening in Ukraine right now. Please follow our page to be informed about the further events over the next week. The next episode will be broadcast on Tuesday, 22nd of March, 4 p.m. Kyiv time, 2 p.m. London time, with our special guest, philosopher, translator, and public activist Oleksiy Panich from Ukraine, who will talk to writer Martin Pollack, Austrian writer, highly acclaimed journalist, editor, and translator, the author of Astonishing the Dead Man in the Bunker. Thank you, our great speakers. Thank you, our viewers.
Just go on doing what you are doing.
Thank you.
Follow our dialogues on war, share the stream, spread the word, and stand with Ukraine. I can't say less than this is our shared responsibility today.